In the winter of 1347, a Cistercian monk discovered that the dead abbot's heart had turned to stone, and that it was still beating. The stone heart of Cîteaux. The snow fell like ash over the Abbey of Cîteaux on the night Brother Matthias was summoned to prepare Abbot Guillaume's body for burial. The old man had died 3 days prior, his passing marked by neither violence nor surprise. He was 72, ancient by any measure, and had simply failed to wake one December morning. Yet something about his death troubled the monastery. The other monks whispered that his chamber had smelled of sulfur, that his eyes had remained open, fixed on the ceiling beams, that the winter birds had fled the courtyard the moment he expired. Matthias dismissed such talk as superstition born of grief. He had served as the abbey's infirmarian for 20 years, and death held no mysteries for him. He had closed the eyes of plague victims and fever-stricken children, had washed the bodies of men who died peacefully in their sleep, and those who had perished screaming. The dead were simply clay returning to earth, nothing more. The abbot's chamber was in the oldest part of the monastery, where the stone walls still bore the chisel marks of the original builders from 2 centuries past. Matthias carried his basin of water and his bundle of linen cloths through corridors lit only by his candle. His breath formed clouds in the frigid air. Somewhere in the darkness, he heard the sound of chanting, the brothers at their midnight prayers, their voices rising and falling like waves against a distant shore. When he pushed open the heavy oak door to Guillaume's room, the cold struck him like a physical blow. It was far colder inside than in the corridors, cold enough that ice had formed in delicate patterns on the interior of the window. The abbot's body lay on the narrow bed, still dressed in his habit, his hands folded across his chest in an attitude of prayer. Matthias set down his basin and approached the bed. In the candlelight, Guillaume's face appeared peaceful, almost serene, but there was something wrong about its color, too gray, too lifeless, even for a corpse 3 days dead. The monk reached out to begin his work, intending to remove the habit and wash the body according to custom. His hand stopped an inch from the abbot's chest. He could feel it through the wool of the habit, a rhythmic vibration, steady and slow. Impossible, yet undeniable. Matthias pressed his palm flat against Guillaume's chest and felt his own heart begin to race. There was a pulse there, but not the soft flutter of a heartbeat. This was harder, more mechanical, like the grinding of millstones. With trembling fingers, Matthias pulled aside the habit, exposing the abbot's pale chest. He made the sign of the cross and whispered a prayer before taking up his knife. He had to know, had to see. The blade parted the cold flesh with surprising ease, as if cutting through wax. No blood flowed. The body had been dead too long for that. But when Matthias pulled back the ribs and looked into the cavity of the chest, he dropped his knife. Where Guillaume's heart should have been, there sat a stone. Not a stone-like mass of hardened tissue, but an actual stone, smooth and grey as river rock, with veins of darker mineral running through it like the marbling in expensive manuscript pages. And it was moving, contracting and expanding with that same grinding rhythm he had felt through the habit, pumping nothing through veins that no longer carried blood. Matthias staggered backward, his mind reeling. He had seen many strange things in his years as infirmarian, tumors that resembled faces, bones that grew in twisted spirals, organs misplaced or malformed, but nothing like this. This was beyond the natural world, beyond even the darkest miracles of the saints. His candle flickered, and in that moment of dancing shadow, he noticed something else. On the table beside the abbot's bed lay a book, not a psalter or breviary, but something older, its leather binding cracked and stained. Matthias had never seen it before, and Guillaume had been a man of strict orthodoxy who kept only approved texts in his possession. The monk's hand reached for the book before his mind could object. The cover was warm to the touch. impossibly warm in that frozen room. He opened it and found pages covered in a script he did not recognize. Not Latin, not Greek, not even Arabic or Hebrew. The letters seemed to writhe in the candlelight, forming patterns that hurt to look at directly. But there were illustrations, diagrams of the human body with lines and symbols marking specific points, and drawings of hearts, dozens of hearts, each one transforming in stages from flesh to stone. A sound behind him made Matthias spin around. The door, which he had left ajar, was now closed, and standing before it, his face obscured by the shadow of his cowl, was